ever wondered why nuclear power plants are often located near coastlines? Nuclear power plants generate massive amounts of energy, and they need a lot of cooling to keep their equipment operational. And what's the best coolant available? Water. Seawater like this is ample, free, and very cold. Here's how it all works. Water plays a huge role in the operation of a nuclear power plant, particularly in its reactor, where energy is generated. Nuclear reactors create, moderate, and control a series of nuclear reactions using radioactive material like uranium-235 as fuel. Throughout the process, nuclear reactors use water as both a moderator and a coolant. Nuclear reactors are driven by the splitting of atoms in a process called fission. A neutron is fired at an atom, and it fissions into smaller atoms and additional neutrons. Some of the neutrons hit other atoms and cause them to fission and release even more neutrons, creating a chain reaction. Water acts as a moderator to slow down the neutrons produced by fission, so a chain reaction can be sustained. The fissioning of atoms in the chain reaction releases a lot of energy as heat. The heat is removed from the reactor using circulating water. Water takes the heat energy to generate steam. The steam from the boiling water spins a turbine, which drives a generator to create carbon-free electricity. To ensure the nuclear reaction takes place at the right speed, control rods are inserted into the core of the reactor to accelerate, slow down, or shut down the reaction, as well as the heat produced. This whole process generates massive amounts of energy. For every 3 units of energy produced by a nuclear power plant's reactor, 2 units are discharged to the environment as waste heat. Naturally, all this heat would need to be directed somewhere. Some power plants built far away from the shore use on-site facilities such as cooling towers to discharge the heat into the atmosphere. But most nuclear power plants have Mother Nature to thank for their cooling needs. Large bodies of water provide a constant, safe route for heat generated by a power plant. Water is also an essential source of steam that allows these power plants to function. Over time, the steam used to power the turbines that generate electricity in power plants degrades, causing it to power the turbines less efficiently. At this point, the steam is cooled back down into water, usually in the power plant's condenser. New water, mostly from a nearby body of water, is also required at this junction to cool everything down. Water is also used to cool the condenser. Once the water is cooled down, it is discharged into the nearby body of water, just a few degrees warmer than when it came in. So what about its impact on the environment? Both traditional coal-based power plants and nuclear power plants pose a threat to their environment. They just do their damage in different ways. For instance, unlike traditional power sources, nuclear power barely generates any CO2 emissions. While this has often been highlighted as one of the upsides of nuclear power, it is not without its drawbacks. Despite attempts to minimize water contamination, a nuclear power plant can still harm the marine ecology of its surrounding body of water. Although none of the water that gets dumped back has come into contact with radioactive material, it can contain a host of heavy metals and salts that pose significant harm to aquatic life. And it's important to note that not all nuclear facilities built on shorelines possess cooling towers to cool the water down before it's dumped back into the sea. And even if they do, it still ends up being a few degrees warmer than it should be. Raising the temperature of the water over time reduces the overall amount of oxygen in it, making it close to impossible for aquatic life to live here. This increase in temperature can also destroy entire coral reefs if left unchecked. Aside from this, nuclear power is often cited to be the thirstiest power source, as it requires the most amount of cooling to operate at maximum efficiency. For nuclear power plants built near freshwater sources, this would mean the consumption of massive amounts of otherwise usable water. Despite nuclear power's reputation as a relatively clean source of energy, it's clear there are still a lot of issues that need to be worked out, and we should always be wary of its effects on our environment.